There's a question almost everyone gets asked at some point: tell me about your family. And yet, for so many people, that simple question becomes surprisingly difficult to answer. Not because they don't know their family, but because the moment they try to describe who everyone is and how they're all connected, the words just don't come. The relationships feel tangled, the vocabulary feels uncertain, and before long, the confidence disappears. Well, today that changes. By the time you finish watching this video, you'll be able to talk about every single member of your family clearly, correctly, and with complete confidence. Let's start at the very beginning with the people closest to you. When someone asks about your family, the first thing to understand is the difference between your immediate family and your extended family. These are two very different groups of people, and mixing them up is one of the most common mistakes people make when describing their family relationships. Your immediate family, also called your nuclear family, is the small, core unit you live with and grow up alongside. This group includes your father, your mother, and your siblings. Now, siblings simply means your brothers and sisters. And yes, before you wonder, you are also part of this family. You count. You belong in that picture too. Now, when it comes to siblings, the English language makes an important distinction based on age, and it's one worth knowing well. If your sister was born before you, she is your elder sister. If your brother was born after you, he is your younger brother. These descriptors, elder and younger, tell the listener not just who the person is, but where they fall in the family timeline. So instead of just saying, "I have a sister and a brother," you can say something far more precise and natural. "I have an elder sister who works at a bank. And I have a younger brother who goes to school." That one sentence tells a complete story. So that's your nuclear family, the tight, immediate circle that shares your home and your daily life. But of course, family doesn't stop there. Beyond your nuclear family lies a much larger world of relatives, and understanding how to talk about them is where things get truly interesting. Once you move beyond your nuclear family, you enter the world of extended relatives, the aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents who form the broader network of people connected to you by blood or marriage. And here's where one of the most useful distinctions in family vocabulary comes in: the difference between your paternal family and your maternal family. Your paternal family refers to all the relatives on your father's side. The word paternal comes from pater, the Latin word for father. Your maternal family, on the other hand, refers to all the relatives on your mother's side, from mater, meaning mother. Keeping these two terms in mind will help you describe any relative with precision and clarity. Now, to make all of this concrete, let's walk through a real example using two families. On your father's side, we have Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. They are your father's parents, which means they are your grandparents, specifically your paternal grandparents. Your father also has a brother named Peter. Peter is married to a woman named Maria, and together they have a son named Ben. Since Peter is your father's brother, he is your paternal uncle. Maria, as Peter's wife, is your aunt, and Ben, as the child of your uncle and aunt, is your cousin. Your father also has a sister named Jenny. Jenny is your paternal aunt. She is married to a man named William, which makes William your uncle. So just on your father's side alone, you already have grandparents, an uncle, an aunt, and a cousin, each with a specific title that reflects exactly how they connect to you. Now let's look at your mother's side. Here we have Mr. and Mrs. Smith, your mother's parents and therefore your maternal grandparents. Your mother has a brother named Richard who is married to a woman named Kelly. Richard is your maternal uncle, Kelly is your aunt, and their daughter Mary is your cousin. Your mother also has a sister named Lisa. Lisa is engaged to a man named Ron, which means they are not yet married, so Ron is currently Lisa's fiancé. For you, Lisa is your maternal aunt. What you're seeing here is that the structure on both sides of the family is essentially the same. The relationships mirror each other. What changes is simply which parent they belong to, and that's where paternal and maternal come in to keep everything clear. Now that the big picture is in place, it's time to go deeper. Knowing that someone is your uncle or your grandmother is a great start, but truly understanding your family means knowing how each person relates not just to you, but to everyone else in the picture as well. This is what separates basic knowledge from real fluency in talking about your family. Let's begin with your paternal grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Mr. Johnson is your father's father. That relationship is straightforward, but how does Mr. Johnson relate to your mother? He is her father-in-law, and how does he relate to you? He is your grandfather, your paternal grandfather to be precise, Mrs. Johnson, as your father's mother, is your mother's mother-in-law, and for you, she is your grandmother, your paternal grandmother. These in-law relationships are important because they show how people who weren't born into the family become part of it through marriage. Every time someone marries into your family, a whole new set of relational titles comes into play, and once you understand the logic behind them, they become very easy to apply. Now let's look at Peter, Maria, and Ben through this wider lens. Peter is your father's brother. For your mother, that makes Peter her brother-in-law. For you, Peter is your paternal uncle. Maria, who is married to Peter, is your father's sister-in-law. For your mother, Maria is also her sister-in-law. And for you and your siblings, Maria is simply your aunt. Their son Ben is your father's nephew, your mother's nephew, and your cousin. Then there's Jenny, your father's sister. For your father, she is his sister. For your mother, Jenny is her sister-in-law. And for you, your brother and your sister, Jenny is your aunt, your paternal aunt. William, who is married to Jenny, is your father's brother-in-law, your mother's brother-in-law, and your uncle. What becomes clear when you look at it this way is that every single relationship has a name, and that name changes depending on whose perspective you're speaking from. The same person can be a nephew to one family member and a cousin to another. Understanding this shifting perspective is what allows you to talk about your family with real accuracy and confidence. Here is something worth pausing on because it reveals something elegant about how family vocabulary works. The titles don't just describe people, they describe relationships. And relationships, by their very nature, are relative. The same individual occupies a completely different position in the family depending on who is doing the describing. Ben is a nephew to your parents but a cousin to you. Jenny is a sister to your father but an aunt to you. This isn't confusing once you see the logic, it's actually a beautifully organized system. Now that you have a firm grip on the paternal side, let's apply that exact same framework to your mother's side of the family. The structure works in precisely the same way, only now the reference point shifts from your father to your mother. Let's use Mr. and Mrs. Johnson again, this time as your mother's parents. For your mother, Mr. Johnson is her father and Mrs. Johnson is her mother. For your father, Mr. Johnson becomes his father-in-law and Mrs. Johnson becomes his mother-in-law. For you, they remain your grandparents, but now they carry a different label. They are your maternal grandparents because the connection runs through your mother's line. Now let's say Peter is your mother's brother in this scenario. For your father, that makes Peter his brother-in-law. For you, Peter is still your uncle, but now he is your maternal uncle, not your paternal one. Maria, as Peter's wife, is your mother's sister-in-law, your father's sister-in-law, and your aunt. Ben, their son, is your mother's nephew, your father's nephew, and your cousin. And if Jenny is now your mother's sister, then for your father she is his sister-in-law. For you, Jenny is your aunt, this time your maternal aunt. William, as her husband, is your mother's brother-in-law, your father's brother-in-law, and your uncle. What you are seeing is not two different systems, it is the same system applied twice, once from each parent's perspective. Once you understand one side, you automatically understand the other. The only thing that changes is whether you add the word paternal or maternal to clarify which branch of the family you're referring to. At this point, you have covered a significant amount of ground. You know what a nuclear family is. You know the difference between paternal and maternal relatives. You know how grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins connect to you, and how those same people relate differently to your parents. But knowing the vocabulary is only half the journey. The other half is putting it into actual language, speaking about your family in full, natural sentences that feel confident and fluid. This is where practice becomes essential, and the good news is that it doesn't require anything complicated. You simply take the relationships you've learned and build real sentences around them. Think about how you might describe your grandfather. Instead of just saying, I have a grandfather, you can say, my grandfather's name is Mr. Johnson, and he is a retired man who spent his career working hard to build this family. That sentence is specific, personal, and engaging. Think about how you would introduce your uncle. Rather than stopping at Peter is my uncle, you might say, I have an uncle named Peter who works for a company in the city. He's always been one of my favorite people to talk to. The moment you add a detail, a name, a profession, a personality trait, the person comes alive in the listener's mind. You can do the same with your aunt. Jenny is my paternal aunt, and she never misses a chance to bring gifts during Christmas. She's the kind of person who makes every family gathering feel special. Or with your cousin. Ben is my cousin on my father's side, and we grew up going to the same school for years. Each of these sentences demonstrates not just vocabulary, but a real command of how family relationships are expressed in natural, everyday English. The goal isn't to recite definitions. The goal is to talk about the people you love in a way that feels genuine and clear. When you can describe your family with ease, using the right words, the right titles, and the right context, conversations become something you look forward to rather than something you dread. Let's bring everything together now, because by this point you have built a complete foundation for talking about your family in English. You started with the innermost circle, your nuclear family, made up of your parents and your siblings. You learned to distinguish between an elder sister and a younger brother, and you saw how even those small details add precision and personality to the way you speak. From there, you expanded outward into your extended family, the grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins who make up the larger world of people connected to you. You learned that your father's side is called your paternal family, and your mother's side is called your maternal family. And that this distinction helps you describe any relative with absolute clarity, no matter how large or complex the family tree becomes. You also discovered the in-law relationships, how marriage brings new people into the family and gives them their own specific titles. A brother's wife becomes a sister-in-law. A father's father becomes a father-in-law to someone who married into the family. These connections are not random. They follow a clear, consistent logic that becomes second nature the more you use it. Most importantly, you learn to see every relationship from multiple perspectives. The same person can be a nephew, a cousin, or a son depending on who is speaking. Understanding that shift in perspective is what truly separates someone who knows the vocabulary from someone who can actually use it, fluidly, accurately, and with confidence. Family is one of the most personal topics there is. And when you have the words to talk about it properly, something wonderful happens, conversations become deeper, connections become clearer. And the people in your life feel more fully seen and acknowledged. Whether you're introducing your family to a new friend, answering questions at work, or simply describing your weekend plans, the language you've learned today will serve you in every one of those moments. So the next time someone asks you about your family, take a breath and smile, because now you have everything you need to answer that question well. Talk about your grandparents, your uncles, your aunts, your cousins. Use the words paternal and maternal. Mention whether a sibling is elder or younger. Add a small personal detail that brings each person to life. And watch as the conversation flows naturally, confidently, and without hesitation. That's the power of having the right words, and today those words are yours.